things that HR does, probably one of the most biggest things that we do is hire people and bring them in. But the next step is making certain those people know the pathway that we're expecting them to follow to be successful in their job on a regular basis as they go through. And that really comes from training. Really, it starts at the very as soon as they get hired, you do an orientation as you go through, all the way to do just training, and even after that, management development, which is a little bit different than training as we go through. But overall, you have to really focus on big picture items or training as you go through. Where is that employee supposed to be 3 years from now? So if you're training them about something in the very first week, do you really focus on 3 years? Well, probably not, except for the fact that you need to make certain they have an idea of the pathway you're expecting them to develop as they go through as an employee. Even some of the lower level employees, they need to see big picture. The more communication you have, the easier their job becomes, and also the more motivated they are, because now they're part of the big picture. You wanted to do that as you go through. It also creates a positive work environment. FedEx, I have to tell you, I've been in a FedEx warehouse, talked to FedEx drivers and some of the people that work there. And to be honest about it, I don't see a lot of things that are super highly detailed as you go through. It's simply hard work. But that being said, FedEx has one of the lowest turnover rates because the employees stay a long time, because they have 3 times the average amount of training as the other comparable companies as they go out there. The employees generally are engaged. They know the process from beginning to end. Even just a driver as they go through, they understand an awful lot as to how things end up on their truck, the process. They can explain stuff as you go through because they're all strategic oriented as you go through. Part of the thing is we want to make certain that we have a continuous learning process as you go through. Frankly, every employee should have at least 20 hours or more for training. From my perspective, I think that really helps them engage in the overall process. Some of the continuous learning, you got 3 different kinds. You really have a knowledge management aspect, the informal learning, and then also the formal training and development as you go through. So formal training, you sit there, you want to make sure you're touching all the bases. It's a room set aside, a time set aside, where you sit down, you must complete 2 hours of training in the next 2 weeks. And you tell them to actually go through and deal with this training right over here. Then the informal learning as you go through, sometimes this is a matter of doing it online. Sometimes it's a matter of informal coaching as you go through. You want to make certain they have the knowledge that's involved. Then also that continuous aspect of knowledge management by having a good feed of communication so they know what's going on a regular basis. Really, there's 6 stages of really training design. A lot of times there's instructional system design. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But also a really good, an acronym is called the Abbey Model as you go through. Instructional design really is how we improve the analysis of the learning needs by developing learning experiences as you go through. We use that an awful lot in education as we go through. Here are the Abbey model. You'll see an awful lot of things that happen over here. The analysis as to what's going on. Then you design from the analysis what the job does, and you design something for it. You develop it, you implement, and then you evaluate as you go through, and then you analyze some more. It's an ongoing process of making certain that the employees are learning stuff that's relevant to the job today, but also today in the context of tomorrow. This is an example we call Bloom's taxonomy. In higher education, you'll see an awful lot of this. It resembles the Abbey model very well in the aspect of creating, evaluating, analyzing, applying, understanding, remembering. This is the model that we use to develop classes just like this. We call it Bloom's taxonomy, or the methodology as we go through and try to create classes that really bring meaning to you as the individual. It's very similar to the training process, just like the Abbey model as shown over here as you go through. So the first stage that you need to know is called needs assessment. Go through, see what are the needs on this job. What do they have to know? I have to know this thing over here to be successful. We call that a pressure point. It's a matter of you need to know what that particular item is. It involves an analysis, big picture wise. Can the person do the job? And then do they have the tools to complete that task as you go through? So needs assessment, you want to sit down, know what the pressure points are, the critical parts of the job that must be done exactly correct as you go through, but also then make certain they understand the organizational basis, the person themselves, can they do that work, and also also the task as you go through. Whole series of them as you go through, and you look at pressure points, the analysis, and everything as you go through. And then you go through with the organizational analysis, and that's where you sit down and see the process of support of the managers and peers. They all understand what that employee needs to do. So all the peers are on the same page and the managers are, and that way you have good, solid communication and make certain it ties into the corporate strategy, like the big picture we talked about, and then have those resources as you go through. We'll talk more about this as we progress through this chapter, but know this, we're going to train people to get there. It's got to be big picture training, strategic training. It's got to be continuous. There should be formal timelines annually as what employees should be doing as you go through. And then occasionally there'll be special topics you need to know about. Know about ADDIE, analysis, design, development, implementation, evaluation. That's what ADDIE stands for as you go through. So know that as you go through. And above all, conduct a needs assessment to know why you're doing this to begin with. Entertainment should not be part of the overall training process. You can entertain in the process, but that being said, training should have a specific goal and purpose as you go through. Take care.